okay? Who should I believe, you or my lying eyes? All these conspiracy theories have gone wild. He's never set foot on the campus before. Okay, I guess all the cameras are lying. There is a theory that all the texts were actually written by the FBI. What?
No, we have not seen an autopsy report, and that has fueled further speculation.
We are bombarded by these insane theories that the FBI secretly wrote all the texts from Robinson. They won't even leave his widow alone. This is fodder for the defense. It's complete fodder. They don't even have to come up with a trial strategy. Conspiracy theory, and let's take a look at the source of some of the conspiracy theories.
Oh, I'm not going to put this down in writing with every detail. And apparently whoever offered those messages, likely feds, didn't have a modicum of intelligence. The family says that the photo of the young man that is coming up the stairs, which was shared, that blurry image, is definitively not Tyler Robinson. And when I put together what I'm being told by Lance's family and what I'm hearing from the Robinson family through a third party, I will say that it matches. It kind of seems like they're agreeing. One family's going, hey, Lance is kind of evil. Why is he getting cleared? And the other one's going, Tyler's not this guy.
If the FBI is responsible, then they would have been responsible for the shooting and for setting it up and for framing him. I mean, this goes a lot deeper than faking a few texts. So you would have to believe that the FBI was in on this from the get-go. Do you really believe that? Because I find it to be a fantastical farce.
The clock is ticking on what appears to be a major cover-up in the Charlie Kirk assassination case. Sources have now confirmed that doorbell camera footage captured 22-year-old Tyler Robinson changing his clothes right after the shooting, and he was not alone. An unidentified woman was right there with him, potentially serving as an accomplice. Yet the FBI has not acknowledged this footage or released it to the public. This development could very well be the biggest breakthrough uncovered so far in the ongoing investigation. So wind to the day of the shooting and zero in on the footage itself. Shayna Broderick, who is Phil Lyman's cousin and refers to him as uncle, meaning they're clearly family members through and through, decided to delete all of his social media accounts shortly after he was reached out to. Phil Lyman is an American politician from Utah who ran for governor in the 2024 Republican primary but lost to incumbent Spencer Cox. And his supposed nephew, Shayna, completely wiped his Instagram, deleted his Facebook entirely, and even removed his LinkedIn page when asked about this footage discovered, which I'll play in a couple seconds. If you listen closely, you'll hear his aunt questioning the timeline, noting that it took far too long for Tyler to move from one spot to another. And then the bombshell, she directly mentions a woman being an accomplice. Let's roll the clip.
If you time how long it took him to get from that little part over to here, was way longer than it should have been. So I wondered if the girl had given him stuff, like if there is an accomplice. Sorry, you're filming.
And it said right here, that picture from Sam's across the street, he was right here.
Yep.
So just to be clear, those subtitles are wrong. It's just that's AI. She's saying, I wondered if there is an accomplice. Okay. I wondered if there is an accomplice, which we should edit that, Chris, when we re-release that. And then somebody says something, and she's like, sorry, I didn't realize you were filming. So you will recall that we had received a lead live on the show. Someone paid money to inform us that there was footage that the FBI was hiding. Right? She wrote in, said, I have been trying to reach out to you everywhere. The FBI is hiding footage. The doorbell cam footage, she told me. And then she gives me a name, and that name was another Lyman family member. And that's when my spidey senses started tingling. I'm like, okay, this is a lot of Lymans now.
Now turning our attention to Shayna's mystery companion who appears in some of those videos. There is this goth-looking kid whom Phil had made clear he does not know at all. Tips from Candace Owens' viewers have pointed towards someone named Robbie Hilt, supposedly from Washington State.
The clock is ticking, evidence hidden, footage erased, and a case that may not be what it seems. When the world was told that Tyler Robinson was the man behind the Charlie Kirk shooting, the narrative was pushed out faster than the facts could even be confirmed. Within hours, headlines declared the story over. Case closed. Justice served. But what if that version of events was never the full truth? What if the evidence we were shown was carefully selected while the most important footage was locked away? Because now, new revelations point to something far more disturbing. Doorbell camera recordings showing Tyler Robinson wasn't alone after the shooting. He was with someone, an unidentified woman, possibly an accomplice. And yet, that footage has never been released to the public. Why? This raises the kind of questions that shake the foundation of the entire case. If Tyler wasn't acting alone, what else hasn't been revealed? And more importantly, who might still be out there? In this video, we're going to peel back the layers of one of the most controversial cases in recent history, expose the contradictions in the official story, and examine why critical evidence may have been buried. So if you care about truth, if you care about justice, and if you want to see the bigger picture behind this case, don't just watch this video. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and share this story before it disappears. Because the closer we look, the more the official version begins to unravel. To understand how we got here, we have to go back to the very beginning, the version of events investigators rushed to release. According to authorities, Tyler Robinson acted alone. They say he positioned himself on a rooftop overlooking the packed auditorium, armed with a high-powered bolt-action rifle. From there, he allegedly fired the single shot that ended Charlie Kirk's life. Police claimed his DNA was recovered on the trigger of that rifle. Surveillance footage, they insisted, placed him near the building in the hours leading up to the event. And then came what prosecutors called their smoking gun, a handwritten note discovered under his computer keyboard at home. A note that read, "I have the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk, and I'm going to take it." On the surface, it was the perfect case. A clear motive, a clear plan, a suspect in custody within hours. By dawn, the headlines across the nation declared the case solved. Tyler Robinson wasn't just accused, he was branded as guilty in the court of public opinion before the trial even began, and the justice system seemed ready to make an example of him. Within 24 hours, prosecutors filed charges, aggravated murder, obstruction of justice, and firearm discharge in the presence of children. They even announced their intent to seek the harshest penalty possible, death. It looked like swift justice, a dangerous man caught, a grieving nation reassured. But the speed at which the narrative was built, and the certainty with which it was sold, is exactly why so many now question whether the story was ever as airtight as it seemed. Because if even one piece of that chain breaks, the case against Tyler Robinson doesn't just weaken, it collapses. And that's when the cracks begin to show. But then comes the evidence that threatens to flip the entire case upside down. Weeks after Tyler Robinson's arrest, rumors began to surface online, whispers about video footage investigators didn't want the public to see. And soon, those whispers solidified into something more concrete, reports of a doorbell camera recording from a quiet neighborhood street, time-stamped just hours after the shooting. The footage allegedly shows Tyler Robinson stepping out of a car, hurried, frantic. But he isn't alone. Standing right beside him is a woman, unknown, unidentified, handing him what appears to be a bag of clothes. Moments later, the camera captures Tyler pulling a hoodie over his head and changing into fresh clothing. That single clip, if verified, changes everything. Because if Tyler Robinson wasn't alone, then the entire foundation of the lone gunman story begins to crumble. It raises questions prosecutors never wanted asked. Who is the woman? Was she an accomplice? Did she drive him away from the scene? Did she handle the weapon? And why has no law enforcement agency ever addressed her existence? And here's where it gets even more troubling. Despite multiple requests from journalists, the FBI has never released the footage. Not a frame, not a screenshot, not even an acknowledgement that it exists. The official line remains silence, as though the tape never happened. But why would federal investigators, tasked with transparency in a case of this magnitude, bury such a critical piece of evidence? Why conceal video that could either confirm or deny Tyler Robinson's innocence? Because if the footage is real, it shatters the narrative that Tyler was acting alone. It opens the door to a conspiracy far larger than anyone imagined. One where the public may have been deliberately misled, and where the true scope of the crime has never been revealed. When you start looking closely, the airtight case against Tyler Robinson doesn't just show cracks, it begins to fall apart piece by piece. Let's start with the DNA. Authorities claimed Tyler's DNA was found on the rifle used in the shooting. But what they didn't emphasize was just how shaky that claim really is. The weapon passed through multiple hands before testing, and chain of custody records show gaps, missing signatures, unexplained transfers. In other words, we can't say for certain that the DNA wasn't contaminated, planted, or mishandled. And in a death penalty case, that should raise red flags immediately. Then there's the so-called confession note, a single piece of paper discovered under Tyler's computer keyboard at home. Prosecutors presented it as the smoking gun, proof that Tyler planned everything. But handwriting analysts quietly noted irregularities. Some letters matched his style, others didn't. And forensic experts revealed something even stranger. The note had no fingerprints, not Tyler's, not anyone's. Just a sheet of paper too clean to exist naturally in a home office. Was it real, or was it manufactured to seal the case before questions could be asked? And then there's the timeline itself. Prosecutors insisted Tyler slipped onto the rooftop, fired the fatal shot, and escaped in under 5 minutes, all while hundreds of people flooded the area in panic. But eyewitnesses described seeing someone else, dressed in dark clothing, sprinting away from the scene in the opposite direction. Those accounts never made it into the official record. One by one, the pieces that were supposed to lock Tyler into the role of lone assassin begin to look less like evidence and more like a carefully constructed narrative. And the speed at which that narrative was pushed, headlines written, charges filed, penalties announced within hours, feels less like justice and more like a rush to close the book before anyone had time to ask, what if the real story is much bigger? Because the moment you accept that the case against Tyler doesn't add up, you're forced to ask the question no one wants to hear. If Tyler Robinson wasn't the lone shooter, then who was? We have to step back and ask the most important question of all: who stood to gain from Charlie Kirk's death, and why? Charlie Kirk wasn't just a speaker, he was a lightning rod. His rallies drew thousands, his critics were loud, and his political presence carried weight far beyond the stage. Silencing him wasn't just about one man, it was about silencing a voice that had influence, followers, and reach. Investigators quickly painted Tyler as a lone extremist, motivated by personal anger. But here's where things don't add up. Tyler had no history of violence, no online rants, no trail of threats. His background showed a young man with struggles. Yes, but not the kind of profile you'd expect for an orchestrated assassination. Which raises the possibility, was he chosen because he was easy to frame? And then there's the woman, the unidentified figure caught on that doorbell camera. Who was she? A friend? A stranger? Or part of something larger? The fact that federal authorities have stayed silent on her existence suggests one of two things. Either she doesn't fit the narrative they want the public to believe, or revealing her identity would unravel far more than just Tyler's case. The motive may not have been Tyler's at all. It may have belonged to people who needed Kirk silenced, whether for political gain, financial interest, or to prevent something he was about to reveal. Tyler's role then shifts from mastermind to scapegoat, the name, the face, and the story that keeps the public satisfied, while the bigger players remain in the shadows. And that's where the missing links come into play. Why was the investigation wrapped up so quickly? Why has evidence like the doorbell footage never been acknowledged? And why does every inconsistency seem to push us toward the same unsettling conclusion, that Tyler Robinson may not have been the killer the world was told he was? When you connect those dots, a chilling picture begins to emerge, one where justice wasn't served, truth wasn't revealed, and the real story is still hidden just out of reach. So where does this leave us? On the surface, the Charlie Kirk assassination looks like a tragedy with a simple answer: one man, one motive, one act of violence. But when you dig deeper, the evidence gaps, the missing footage, the mystery woman, the unexplained figures in the background, you realize the truth may be far more complicated. And here's what should trouble all of us. If the official story isn't complete, then justice has not been served. That means the real people responsible, whether they were accomplices, masterminds, or something even more powerful, could still be out there, free and protected by silence. This is bigger than Tyler Robinson. It's bigger than one shooting. This is about trust. Trust in our institutions. Trust in law enforcement. Trust in the systems that are supposed to protect us. Because if evidence can disappear, if witnesses can be ignored, and if entire pieces of the puzzle can be hidden from the public, then how many other cases have we been told to believe without ever being shown the full truth? Charlie Kirk's voice may have been silenced, but his death has ignited a louder question: how many truths are we not being told? And how far are those in power willing to go to control the narrative? The unanswered questions remain. Who was the woman seen with Tyler Robinson? Why hasn't the FBI acknowledged her presence? What role did outside forces, political, social, or even foreign, play in shaping this event? And most importantly, why was the story of a lone gunman locked in and sold before the investigation had even begun? At the end of the day, fake narratives eventually crumble. The truth has a way of breaking through, no matter how deeply it's buried. And it's up to us, the people who refuse to look away, to keep asking, keep sharing, and keep demanding answers until real justice is revealed. If you've made it this far, I know you care about uncovering the truth as much as I do. So don't just watch, take action, hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and share this video so more people can see the evidence for themselves.